Hi everyone, it's Sabrina back here with another great podcast, and I'm going to talk a little bit about something near and dear to my heart, and that's garden to table. Nourishing for joy and sharing from my garden, the harvest. And this is a really special time of the year when our gardens are in abundance, and there's so much that one little seed or one little plant that you planted back in the spring has now evolved and is ready to give you all the things that we were looking forward to. And here up in the Kawarthas, our growing season is a little bit short. It can be a little delayed. This year, we had a little bit of a colder spring, so things got off to a slow start. And everybody was a little worried, like, what's going to happen to our tomatoes? And we had some rain, and then we had not enough rain. But here we are, and the gardens are flourishing. And I don't know about you, but have you ever walked out to your garden? You know, you're in the kitchen and all of a sudden you're like, I need something for my salad. I need a tomato. So you go out to your garden and you look around and you go to pick that perfect tomato. And then you see other tomatoes. And next thing you know, you have 3 tomatoes, 4 cucumbers, a handful of beans, 2 peppers, maybe some kale. And then you see that onion that wasn't there yesterday. And there it is in its glory. And you decide, I think it's ready. I think I'm going to add that to my salad as well, or my dish. And you get back to your kitchen and you lay everything out and it's a wow. Wow, I grew this with my own hands. I got the soil, the plants, the seeds, put it all into my garden. And here we are with more than I can ever ask for. And all of a sudden your meal plan shifts. And what you were going to do with that one tomato you thought you needed from the garden, now you have a whole abundance of things. And you start thinking like, what am I going to do with all of this? And if you're a gardener, you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially this time of the year. Because there comes a point in summer when the garden goes from giving you a few lovely things here and there to basically saying, here you go, deal with this. And honestly, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. I love walking through the garden and seeing what's ready. I love picking a tomato that's still warm from the sun. And I love snapping off a fresh bean and eating it right in the garden. The smell of a tomato plant on my hands that lingers. And even those mornings when I lift a leaf and discover that a cucumber that wasn't there maybe 2 days ago has apparently been hiding there for a week. And it's enormous. And there's just something incredibly satisfying about growing your own food. And today I thought we'd talk about that. Not just the nutrients we're getting from those beautiful garden vegetables, but also other kind of nourishment that comes from gardening. The joy, the connection, the satisfaction of growing something from a tiny seed or seedling, and eventually putting it on your plate. And then there's one of my favorite parts of gardening, and that's sharing the fruits of your labor. And I know this can be a task because it seems like if people aren't growing their own vegetables, they're being gifted a whole bunch of vegetables, and it's hard to really find someone or anyone to take them. Because if you've ever grown tomatoes, you know eventually there comes a moment that you're chasing people down the street and you're saying, take some, take some. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, garlic, peppers, beans, lettuce, and kale, because that's what's in a plethora right now in my garden. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's actually inside these foods, why they're so good for us, and what we can do when our gardens are overflowing. And why might growing and sharing food be nourishing us in ways that have absolutely nothing to do with vitamins and minerals? So grab a cup of tea, a glass of water, maybe something from your garden, and let's head into the garden and talk about it. I don't know about you, but when I walk into my garden, something changes. I slow down. Even if I've gone outside with a purpose, like I said before, I need something from the garden, I'm suddenly checking everything else that's happening in the garden. And maybe it's not even about the fruits, the vegetables, or the plants that are in the garden. It might be nature, bees, insects, things like that are happening around my garden. And I'm looking under the cucumber leaves, I'm pulling weeds, I'm noticing a flower. And before I know it, I've been outside much longer than I thought I would be. I mean, my husband sometimes thinks he's going to call the search and rescue team because I go out there for one thing and I'm out there for a while. But maybe that's the whole point of the garden, because gardening naturally brings us into the present moment. Think about how sensory it is. You're touching the soil, you're smelling the plants, you're hearing the birds, feeling the sun, noticing colors around you. You're tasting things. And without sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to practice mindfulness now, you're actually doing it. You're paying attention to what's happening right in front of you. And so when people tell me, I don't know, I can't meditate, I don't know mindfulness, you probably do it more than you know. It's being aware, it's being present. And I think many of us desperately need more times like this. We spend so much of our lives thinking ahead. What's next? What do I have to do? Where do I have to be? What did I forget? And the garden doesn't really care about any of that. The garden has its own timeline. You can't rush a tomato. You can water it, feed the soil, stake it, talk nicely to it as if it's to that thing. But you can't stand there and say, could you please ripen by Thursday? I mean, I have people coming over. I need you to be ready. Nature decides. And there's something wonderful about surrendering to it, especially in this world where everything is so instant. You need X, Y, and Z. I'm going to call up my delivery service from so-and-so and they're going to deliver it. Or I'm going to order it online and it will be here tomorrow. It'll be here by the end of the day. So intentionally, the garden makes you slow down. But let's talk about what's exactly or actually in that basket. Because from a nutritional perspective, the basket of garden vegetables is pretty impressive. And maybe you haven't really thought about it. And something I always like to remind people is that we don't necessarily need to chase exotic superfoods, in quotes. Sometimes the superfoods are literally growing 10 feet from our kitchen door. One of the simplest ways to think about nutrition is eat a variety, like different vegetables, different colors, different textures, different herbs. Because those different plants bring different nutrients and plant compounds to the table. And when we combine them, that's when things get really interesting. I mean, people are always asking me to bring salads because they think they taste amazing and ask me all the time, what are in your salads? Why do they taste so great? You need to bring me a salad. I only want you to bring it. But why? Because I do that. I bring texture and color, edible flowers, herbs, a variety of ingredients into the salad. And I allow them to be the star of the show, quite frankly. I don't add a lot of dressing. I make them be the star of the show, especially in the summer months, because they deserve it. And so I think we really need to play on that a lot more and remember that the garden is there to provide such variety for us. And let's take advantage of it, right? So let's start with the vegetable that might just be the star of the summer garden, one that's in plethora right now that everyone grows, and that is the tomato. And I don't know if there's anything better than a garden tomato. I mean, seriously, a tomato straight from the garden tastes completely different. And all you have to do is pick one when it's warm from the sun, slice it, maybe add a little salt, and that's about it. It doesn't need much. And nutritionally, tomatoes have a lot going for them. And there are many different varieties. We have a farmer up here who grows tomato plants, and she has a sale in the summer. And it's amazing the many varieties of tomatoes there are. So I always have little conversations with her before I purchase my tomato plants, because first I like to support local, because I know we can all grow our own tomato plants. I grow a few of my own, but I do like to support local farmers. And the amount of different varieties, I can't tell you. So we have this conversation and we start talking about what each one will bring to my table. Some are a little more acidic, some are a little more flavorful, some are a little more hearty. So we talk about it, and I always like to have a variety of colors, texture. There's ones that have like little stripes in them. They're called zebra tomatoes. I have like green tomatoes that are edible. I have, yellow tomatoes, orange, and some are big, some are small, but I like to go for the medium size just because I feel that I work better with that type of tomato. But it's amazing. And so I grow a variety of tomatoes in my garden. So I don't just have one type, because then it looks so pretty. And when you want to gift some tomatoes, people most likely will take your tomatoes because it's a beautiful array of tomatoes. But what do tomatoes have going for? Well, they give us vitamin C, potassium, folate, and vitamin K. But one of the compounds tomatoes are especially famous for is lycopene. That's one of the pigments responsible for the beautiful red color we see. And did you know, here's something people are often surprised by, cooking tomatoes can actually make their lycopene easier for our bodies to access. We hear so much about raw vegetables being healthier that sometimes we think cooking automatically destroys nutrition. But that's far too simplistic. Cooking changes food, yes. Sometimes we lose a little of certain nutrients, but sometimes other nutrients become more available. And lycopene is a great example. Pairing cooked tomatoes with a little healthy fat like olive oil, which is amazing, can also help with absorption because lycopene is fat soluble. So eat your fresh tomato, absolutely, but also roast them. Cook them in sauces, make tomato soup, make salsa, make bruschetta, slow roast them with garlic and herbs. And if you've got 20 pounds of tomatoes sitting on your counter, you can make sauce and freeze it. And there's something pretty special about opening that freezer in the depths of winter in February or March, pulling out a bag of tomatoes that came from your garden, and it's like opening a little package of August. It's amazing. Great gift. Now there's cucumbers. Cucumbers. This is usually the vegetable where at some point you start asking everyone you know, do you need cucumbers? They're so prolific, but I love them. They're crisp, they're cooling, they're refreshing, they're mostly water. Did you know that a cucumber is roughly 95% water? So during hot summer weather, foods like cucumber can actually contribute to overall fluid intake. Does that replace drinking water? Not exactly, but hydration doesn't only come from what we drink, it also comes from foods we eat. And cucumbers also provide small amounts of vitamin K, potassium, and other nutrients. But sometimes I think we get too caught up in asking, what's the most nutritious vegetable? And really, that's not how nutrition works. A cucumber doesn't need to beat kale or tomatoes in some nutritional competition. It brings something different. The hydration aspect, the fiber, the crunch, plant compounds, and most importantly, it's another plant we're adding to our diet. So chop cucumbers into salads, like a cucumber tomato salad with some dill, perhaps, or some other herbs. Make tzatziki, put your cucumber in water with mint, make some quick refrigerator pickles, fermented pickles. That's amazing. Really simple way to use up your pickles and really good for gut health. Because when that garden starts producing cucumbers faster than you can eat them, pickling suddenly makes a lot of sense. And really, that's how so many traditional food preservation methods began. People had abundance, they didn't want to waste, and they wanted to have these delicious vegetables in through the winter, so they learned how to preserve it. So that being said, the next two things I'll talk about are onions and garlic, which are quite easy to grow and can be in plethora in your garden depending on how many you planted in the fall and also in the spring. So let's put these two together because they're closely related. Onions and garlic belong to the allium family, which I'm not sure if many of you know that. And these are foods that many of us use almost every day without really thinking about them nutritionally. We think of them as flavors. Some of us can tolerate them and some of us don't tolerate them as well. But they're doing more than flavoring our food. Onions contain plant compounds, including quercetin, which has antioxidant properties, and garlic contains sulfur-containing compounds that researchers have been interested in for years. One of the best known is allicin. But here's where it gets interesting. Did you know that allicin isn't just sitting inside an intact garlic clove waiting for you? When you chop or crush garlic, you're essentially bringing compounds and enzymes together that lead to the formation of allicin. So here's a simple kitchen trick I'm going to tell you. Chop or crush your garlic and then let it sit for about 10 minutes before you cook it. It's such a tiny little thing that many of us don't know, and you don't need another supplement. You don't need another complicated wellness routine. Just chop your garlic and let it sit while you prepare the rest of your dinner, the rest of the ingredients, then throw it into your sauce or vegetables. Simple, easy peasy. And garlic and onions make almost everything from the garden taste a little bit better. Roast them with tomatoes and peppers, add them to beans, make soups, make dressings, pickle onions. You can infuse your vinegars, roast a whole head of garlic until it's soft and sweet. And if you've grown the garlic yourself, there's something especially satisfying about pulling those bulbs out of the ground because garlic requires a lot of patience. And my husband is the garlic guy. He loves growing his garlic. He plants it in the fall and waits and waits and waits. And then months later, in the spring, there it is. You start to see it pop up. And I actually love it too. I have to say, it's kind of fun. And then all of a sudden it gets the scapes, and we make scape salts and we make scape vinegar, and it's amazing. It's so delicious. We love it. So I think that gardens are constantly teaching us lessons, that nothing and not everything needs to happen immediately. Peppers are the next one. We have gorgeous peppers, green, yellow, orange, red, sometimes all on the same plant at different stages. And then also with peppers, there's also like hot peppers and your jalapeno peppers, and there's a variety of peppers. So these are all really great. And I just want to say that the typical red bell peppers, especially the red ones, they're full of vitamin C, particularly when they're mature and colorful. And this is another little nutrition fact that I love. Did you know that when we think vitamin C, we immediately think oranges? But sweet peppers can be incredibly rich of vitamin C. So that colorful pepper growing in your garden is bringing some serious nutrition to your plate. Peppers can also provide carotenoids and other antioxidant compounds. And again, color matters. Those red, yellow, and orange pigments represent different plant compounds. That's why I love telling people, eat the rainbow. Eat the rainbow. Not because every plate has to look Instagram perfect, but because color is one of easiest visual reminders to eat a variety of plants. So grill your peppers, stuff them, roast them, eat them raw with hummus, throw them into salads, put them in eggs, add them to tomato sauce, freeze them. I love freezing garden peppers because they're so easy to grab later for soups, sauces, and stir fries. And it doesn't matter if they're not fresh from, the grocery store, you don't need that. It's okay, because guess what? They're all going to soften up into your stews and your soups anyway. So it's perfect. It's the perfect little gem in the winter months again. And you're getting some vitamin C to help combat any of those nasty little flu bugs that are coming our way. So stock up on your peppers. Beans. Beans come a little earlier, but let's talk about fresh beans. There's something about picking fresh beans that makes you feel incredibly productive. You start picking and somehow there's always more and more and more. And fresh greens provide fiber, folate, vitamin C, and vitamin K, among other nutrients. And I want to spend a moment on fiber because it's really important, sometimes overlooked. It's one of those things that isn't particularly glamorous either, but it's incredibly important. Fiber helps with digestive function and regularity. It helps us feel satisfied after meals. And certain fibers also feed microbes living in our gut. Did you know your gut bacteria can ferment certain fibers and produce compounds called shorty chain fatty acids? These compounds, I've said compounds a lot in this podcast, are involved in maintaining the environment of the colon and are an active area of research in the gut and metabolic health. So when you eat a variety of plant foods, you're not just feeding yourself. In a sense, you're also feeding your gut ecosystem. And I think that's really fascinating. So lightly steam those beans. Don't overcook them. Saute them with some garlic. Then you get that other nutrition, that other nutrient. Add lemon and olive oil. Roast them. Add them to your salads, again, to give a little crunch. And when you've had enough fresh beans, you can blanch and freeze them again and use them in the winter months in your stews and soups and what have you. And here's another little gem that we have. This one's sometimes can be a little finicky and it can bolt really quickly, but it's lettuce. Lettuce sometimes gets treated like the boring vegetable. I don't really like lettuce, but it gives us folate again, vitamin K, various carotenoids, and other nutrients depending on the type. Any dark leafy varieties tend to bring more pigments and phytonutrients than very pale varieties. But I think lettuce is a real superpower food that becomes the foundation for everything else. So you start with a lettuce and then you add a cucumber, a tomato, a pepper, beans, fresh herbs, nuts, you can add cheese, add chicken, fresh lettuce, or fresh lentils, eggs, fish. You can make a beautiful homemade dressing and suddenly it's not just lettuce, it's a whole meal. And please, I beg of you, don't make sad salads. Healthy food should taste good and look good. Add crunch, add herbs, add acidity, texture, flavor. Make something you're excited to eat. And if you're going to grow your own lettuce, hidden little secret, grow a variety of lettuce. Grow, red lettuce, red leaf, grow green, grow I had some wasabi arugula that had a little spice to it. You can grow any variety of lettuce that you have. You can grow in the garden and you can add little bits and pieces of things in there. Oh, it's delicious. I think it's the most underrated thing in your garden, and you can do it in succession. So you can plant, one row, leave a row, plant a row, and then when that one's overgrown, you can take that out. Once you've used it up, plant seeds in the next row, and then you can have it so it's coming up at different times. And even if you have these baby leaves, they're perfect to add to your salads as well. And then kale. There was a big hype about kale for a long time ago. Kale. Everybody was eating kale. And I still have some in my garden. I add it to my smoothies, but it's part of the cruciferous vegetable family, along with the broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. It also provides vitamin K, vitamin C, folate, and various minerals. But kale and other cruciferous vegetables also contain compounds called glucosinolates. When we chop and chew these vegetables, the compounds can be transformed into other biologically active compounds. So did you know that chewing isn't just mechanically breaking food apart? It's actually part of the chemistry of eating. Breaking plant cells allows different compounds and enzymes to interact, which is another reason I think we underestimate the importance of slowing down and actually chewing our food. And if you don't love raw kale, don't punish yourself with a big giant bowl of it or discount it in your garden. Healthy eating shouldn't feel like a punishment. Massage the kale first with olive oil and then add a little lemon to break it down a bit. Saute it with garlic. Put it in soups chopped up finely. Add it to eggs sauteed. Blend it into a nice pesto. Make kale chips. And find the version you actually get to enjoy it, because the healthiest food in the world isn't particularly useful if you hate eating it. Now, put the whole garden together. Here's where I think this becomes really, really beautiful and why I love it so much. Imagine dinner tonight. You saute onions and garlic, add some peppers, throw in some tomatoes, add some of those fresh beans, chopped up kale. Then on the side, you make a little salad with those lettuce leaves and a cucumber, some fresh herbs, and maybe some edible flowers that you've thrown in there. And you look at the plate, at these two plates, and instead of asking, what superfood should I eat? Look at how many different plants there are. Different fibers, colors, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals. That is what nutrition is all about. Diversity, not the perfection. But what do we do with all of it? What do we do with all of this? If we can't, you don't want to eat salads every day. I get that. So what do? Let's address the summer gardening problem. You have too much food, a plethora. It's not really a problem. It's that you've done well in your garden. It's bountiful. This is where I think we need to get creative. Have a garden clean out dinner. Once a week, look at what's piling on the counter and in the fridge. Don't start with a recipe, start with the vegetables. You've got the tomatoes, you've got peppers, beans, whatever have you. And you say, what can you do? Roast it? Do you make it into a soup? Do you make it into a pasta sauce? Could you make a frittata, which is with eggs? Could you make a quiche? A stir fry? Could you throw some into a meat sauce? Can you make a huge grain bowl, bruschetta bread? Grill the vegetables on the barbecues. I know zucchini, you got zucchini breads and zucchini loaves, and you can even eat it raw. So you could do spiralized, like pasta noodles out of zucchini. And that's how I cook. I cook like that. I find what's in the garden. What do I have a plethora of and go, what am I going to do with this today? Is it's going to be stuffed zucchini boats with some quinoa maybe in there? Am I going to do like a bake of sorts? And, because sometimes you just have to pivot. And honestly, I don't even know the last time I was in a grocery store. I sometimes go just to pick up things that I obviously don't have in my garden. But I go to the farmer's market a lot. So you can buy the necessary ingredients to add to what you have. And that's where this is amazing. Gardening is amazing. So the garden asks you, what do I already have? What's ready? What needs to be used? And then what can I create? And there's something wonderfully resourceful about that. Preserving the harvest. And of course you can preserve it. Freezing peppers and beans, making soups and freezing, drying herbs, making pesto, pickling onions, pickling cucumbers. We talked about most of this before, but I wanted just to touch upon it again so you all know that this is really important to not just throw away your food, use it, extend the harvest. You have this abundance, carry it forward. And that way, when you're pulling something out of the freezer in the middle of the winter, you can remember that it can bring you back. You can be like, oh my gosh, you're in the dead of winter. Here we get a lot of snow, and I can close my eyes and be like, oh my gosh, I wish it was the soil that my feet were in and not this crazy blizzard of a snowstorm and the cold on my face. I remember the heat on my face when I was complaining it was too hot and I'm sweating and it's humid and I can't handle it. But I take myself back. I was like, oh, I wish I was there right now, and I can't wait for 6 more months because I'll be there again. So these foods will carry memories. And then the most important thing is share it. This might be my actually favorite part. When people come to my garden and visit me up here, I'm able to say, they're like, oh my gosh, your tomato, would you like some? Would you like some onions? Because they come from the city and maybe don't have their garden in plethora, or they don't have space. And so many people will be like, oh my gosh, this is the best. It tastes so fresh. So I give it away. I fill a bag for my neighbors sometimes, or give them to my staff at work. And I also share it with family. And if I'm really I have so much and nobody is interested in what I have because maybe they have their own, I like to donate it to a local food bank or community food program, because they'll make use of it, and they always accept fresh garden produce. Always. So check in with your local food banks. It's important. And there's something really good about it, because it's like giving back, right? You planted the seed, you watered it, you cared for it, you watched it grow, you harvested it, and now it's feeding not only yourself, but it's feeding other people. So how good is that? That's amazing. That's something to really think about. And knowing that something began as a tiny little seed in your hand that can eventually become nourishment for another human being, that's pretty incredible. And I think that's when gardening moves beyond being a hobby and it becomes community. I know up here we have a special place. It's called a wheat tree farm. And there's a community garden there. And all these gardens come in. I mean, they have space at home, but it's just a place where everybody comes together. And at the end, we have a big harvest and we create a meal with over an abundance that we have. We also have there's also a plot in the garden that's donating foods to the food bank. So anybody who has plethora of food in their gardens can add to this donation of foods, which is amazing. And it's just a great community space. We see people and we talk about our gardens, we talk about other things, but it's just so special to see everything. We see how everybody's things are growing and what's somebody doing, what's somebody not doing. I just think gardens there's a sense of community there. And then in town, we have a garden called the Victory Garden that the Horticultural Society takes care of. And all of the produce from that garden goes to the local food bank, and volunteers come out and water it and take care of it and plant it, grow it. And I think that's just so special. And there's nothing that goes unused. Like all the vegetables, even if it's something that somebody, isn't really fond of, will go into like making meatballs or sauces or soups. They use every little bit of the ingredients from the garden. So that's really, really exciting. And we're feeding them nutrients. We're feeding them fresh nutrients. We're getting fresh nutrients. We're creating conversations about vitamin C and vitamin K, folate, potassium, fiber, carotenoids, flavonoids, all these wonderful compounds. And maybe there are other nutrients we get from the garden. They're just not the ones you'll ever find on a label. And you know what that is? Patience, gratitude, movement, fresh air, sunshine, connection, mindfulness, joy, generosity. I can't give you the recommended daily intake for joy, but I think most of us could probably use a little more of it in our world. And for me, gardening brings just that. There's a joy in seeing the first tomato turn red, discovering my first cucumber, and there's joy in pulling that garlic from the earth, especially watching my husband so excited with his 75 garlic that he pulled this year. Watching the bees on the flowers pollinating, doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's just a joy in walking into the house with this basket full of food. And yes, there's even joy in realizing you have so many tomatoes that you need to start giving them away, because that's abundance. And if sometimes the garden's not working out, it can be frustrating, but it's a learning curve as well as what went wrong. Was it the climate? Was it the watering? And that's okay, because that's all patience. It's all humbling. And so I really think that the garden is an amazing, amazing place. And maybe it's not for everybody, but I hope that more of you will take it in, even if it's a little plant in a planter box or herbs in a planter on your windowsill. I mean, those little wins are going to give you so much joy. So here's a challenge for you this week or this week. If you have a garden, go outside with an empty basket. Don't think about dinner. Don't go with any intention. Just go to your garden, walk around, look, see what's ready. It might surprise you. You might be like, wow, I didn't know that was there. You might have something that was overgrown. Pick what the garden is offering you, bring it inside, put everything on the counter, and then ask yourself, what can I make from this? Keep it simple. Maybe it's just a little simple salad with tomatoes, cucumber, and onion, a little basil, olive oil, and vinegar. Maybe you're making a little sauce, a roasted tomato sauce with some onions and tomatoes. Maybe it's beans with sauteed garlic. Maybe it's some kale in a soup or a smoothie. Maybe it's a big colorful salad. And then if your basket is overflowing, fill another basket and give it to someone so that they can get creative and say, I grew this and I'd love for you to have this, and make something creative with it. So maybe really what today's episode about, yes, growing food because it's nutritious. Grow tomatoes for the lycopene, grow peppers for vitamin C, grow kale for wonderful cruciferous compounds, beans for fiber, cucumbers for hydration, and garlic and onions. But also grow something because it makes you happy. That healthy dose of happiness that we talk about. Grow something because putting your hands in soil feels good. Growing something because it slows you down. Grow something because watching a tiny seed become food still feels a little bit magical. And grow enough that every once in a while you can hand some of it to someone else. because maybe the greatest thing in our garden isn't actually the tomato, it's the connection to our food, the connection to nature, a connection to each other. And I can't think of a much better healthy dose of happiness than that. So until next time, eat well, get your hands a little dirty in that soil, enjoy what's growing, and don't forget to share the fruits of your labor.